Welcome to this corporate finance panel discussion on dividend policy. My name is Trevor McElroy. I'm a qualified accountant, but I've spent most of my career as an academic in UK higher education, where I've managed a number of programmes and also been part manager of a business school. Can I introduce you to my colleagues this morning? On my left is Paul.
Hello, my name is Paul Clemmen. I've been in corporate finance for over 30 years. I started out with becoming a chartered accountant with Deloitte Touche. I then progressed and I joined a management buyout and stayed in there for about 15 years. The business grew from a buy-in of 3 million and exited for just short of 300 million. And we did everything imaginable, from doing acquisitions, raising finance, but it was a very successful business. Since then, I have focused on advising businesses, and these days I spend a lot of time advising smaller businesses on writing plans and raising funds from angel investors. Thank you.
And on my right, can I introduce you to Annelies?
Yes, hello. My name is Annelies. I'm a chartered accountant. I have worked for Deloitte and Touche for the last 11 years in 3 different countries. I've been involved in worldwide audit engagements and a few due diligence projects. And I'm currently based in London.
We're going to focus our discussion on the dividend decision made by Microsoft when in 2003, for the first time, they decided to pay a dividend. This was a company which up to then had never paid a dividend, and so at the time the decision was quite a controversial one. There are a lot of different aspects behind any decision that companies make regarding their dividend policy. And perhaps, Annelies, you can start us off by let's looking at some of these influences which will determine the dividend policy of any company.
Yeah, well, I think key here is actually the market expectations and what has been communicated. And usually for public companies, this is something that is done a while before year end. Not meeting those expectations in terms of dividend distributions or not has a huge impact, not only on the share price, but also on the investment confidence, investor confidence, on even the whole organization. So it's got huge repercussions. Yeah. In my experience, dealing with listed clients, they would often have a dividend plan 3 years into the future. So if they miss 1 year, again, this has huge repercussions. So, but I don't know, Paul, maybe you can share some of your experience with.
Yeah, I mean, I was finance director of a public company for more than 10 years, and dividend policy was quite an important issue. It would tend to arise when you were announcing results, interim results, final results, and the shareholders would be quite interested to know it, but the analysts who follow the business would put quite a lot of weight on the results of the business, but also on the dividend policy. And over the years, we paid a lot of attention to what our dividend policy was. Actually, at one stage, we stopped paying a dividend because we sank into losses. And that had a fairly dramatic effect in the short term. Now, we brought the company back to profitability and then maintained our dividend. So it's a very key area in probably the long-term position of the business.
Clearly, making a profit is required before a dividend can be paid. What were some of the other factors, Paul, that determined how much dividend a company actually paid?
Well, I think it's the same in virtually all businesses. Is the decision between do you invest in the business or do you pay dividends to the shareholders? And it's undoubtedly true that you don't want to be paying too much out in dividends because it's net cash out of the business, and that exists in every business. And getting that balance right requires a lot of skill and judgment. But in my view, I think it's quite key that the vast majority of the cash stays invested in the business, and the minority goes out as dividends.
Yes, and clearly that applies to this particular company, Microsoft, that up to 2003 they felt that they had a lot of investments to make that they could carry out, which would add value to the business, so that shareholders got the benefit through the rising share price. And also, the cash situation for Microsoft was such that they could afford to pay a dividend. They had, at the time, round about $40 billion in cash. So they had the profit, they had the cash, they perhaps needed less money for investment. So perhaps all of these were behind Microsoft's decision.
I think it depends on where you see yourself in the world. If you're actually quite interested in your shareholders and other stakeholders, then the decisions you will make will be based on partly on the needs of those people, which obviously Microsoft started to take probably as a more mature business. And I think, well done to them for actually maturing to a stage where it became what most businesses do, actually pay dividends.
Yes.
And I think obviously consistency in your dividend approach is absolutely critical.
Yes.
You cannot change your profile from the one year to the next, because it would, affect your image actually and your brand almost on stock exchanges and all those things.
Yes. Yes. How would you advise two similar type of companies to Microsoft, Apple and Google, that find themselves in a situation of high profit, high cash, but neither of these two companies are paying a dividend?
Well, it's interesting to compare them to Microsoft because at the moment most of the money is going into the development of the business, and whether they will get to the stage where they've kind of peaked, and ironically, when they've peaked and they have still got continuing high profits and cash pile, that's probably the point at which they also will start paying dividends. But it's very hard to project.
I know there is a market perception here. I know Apple and Google are huge rivals of Microsoft. So one of the reasons perhaps that they don't pay a dividend is because Microsoft has.
Yes.
So there is this kind of strategy going on. Another interesting company related to dividends is Ryanair. And here's a company that historically, Paul, has said they won't pay a dividend, but they're saying they might now pay one.
Well, I think it's actually quite tricky to judge long-term investment policy by Ryanair because, what you see isn't what you get. I mean, a lot of it's done for other reasons, other competitive reasons. As we know, they're trying to buy some new aircraft, and that is part of their negotiation stance. So I'm not really quite sure what you can judge by. When they actually pay it, I think we'll probably be in a better position to judge whether that's an investment decision or just a bluff.
Yes. I think that brings an issue of managing growth as well, because a competitor of Ryanair, EasyJet, there is a strategic discussion within the company of how fast this company grows, and related to that growth decision is, of course, a dividend decision that goes along with it. So how important are those kind of decisions, Paul, for companies?
I think it's very interesting with EasyJet because the shareholder profile is so unique. They've got obviously the main, Hajianu is the main shareholder, and actually he has a very strong say. So ironically, it's actually the other way around, isn't it? The shareholders are actually determining the action in the business, whereas in Microsoft, there are lots and lots of millions of small shareholders. They don't really have a say. Yes. So I think that's quite a different dynamic. Whether they should pay a dividend or not, personally, I think it probably would be the right decision for them, because I think, on balance, it is the right decision. I know. What do you think, Annalise?
Yes, I do think that it's all about a balance, and it's like Trevor was saying about keeping part of the money or the cash into the company to just make sure that there is sustainable growth, and then on the other hand also satisfying the investors, which obviously want to see some return. An interesting angle, however, would be like, what is really important, having a dividend on the one hand, or are we investing in an asset growth, basically your investment, and making sure that your investment is growing inherently.
Yes.
So,
I think one point that probably hasn't come out is the fact that an awful lot of shareholders actually are not allowed to invest in businesses that don't pay dividends. I mean, pension schemes in this country, a lot of them have investment rules which say they only invest in companies. So actually, by paying a dividend, you widen your shareholder base, and actually you make yourself much more marketable. And I think that's a very strong point for dividends, but at the right level, as you say.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I also think it depends. Like when you're investing in risky, shares or risky industry or new technology, as an investor, you would like to see some return. A higher return immediately, I would say.
Whereas the market has a confidence when a dividend is paid
yes.
from a company. I think it takes it as a good signal. So let's look at the options which are available then to Microsoft, or were available to Microsoft back in 2003. The first option is that they pay a dividend for the first time, and then they have a consistent payout policy after that. Is that a good strategy, do you think, Paul?
Well, I think once you start, in my own experience, once you start paying a dividend, you've created an expectation. And the expectation of the market is that will continue. In actual fact, after that, withdrawing the dividend has a very, very negative effect, not on the valuation, but also on the perception of the business, which is why you see people like British Airways making loss and paying dividends, because it's the perception of the market. So I think that's the right course. Once you start, you really need to continue, unless you have a very, very good reason not to.
Yes. I think one of the problems that Microsoft had, having made the decision to pay the dividend, was keeping the shareholders happy, because up to that point they hadn't paid a dividend, so shareholders were getting their return in the form of a capital gain, and they had a considerable return. The share price performed very, very well. But these shareholders, some of them, would not want a dividend for tax purposes, because dividends are taxed at income tax, capital gains is taxed at capital gains tax. So when Microsoft made the decision to pay a dividend, they started very low, because their shareholders would not have wanted a big dividend check through the post, because they would have had to pay income tax on that. In the event, Microsoft paid out nearly $30 billion worth back to their shareholders, but a lot of that was through share buybacks to avoid this tax angle. Annelies, what about Microsoft toughing it out in a way and not paying a dividend at all in 2003? Would that have been a strategy for them?
Well, it is a strategy. I'm not sure if it's the best one. Just like Paul was saying, I think consistency in your dividend policy and your dividend payouts is absolutely key. And again, I think it all boils down to what were the expectations set, at the beginning of the year, and how does the market respond to that. So, I would not personally. I don't think that this would be the best, the best strategy to go for.
I think they would have found it. They were under pressure. Having $40 billion in the bank is obviously causing pressure. Investors want some of that returned to them. They don't feel that money in the bank is adding value to their investment. And the other issue with Microsoft at the time, of course, was a regulatory one, where they were being accused of being monopolistic, and they were finding it a little bit embarrassing to go to court when they had $40 billion in the bank and saying that they weren't a monopoly. So I think there were a lot of regulatory pressures as well. Finally, what they could have done, Paul, perhaps, is paid this dividend as a one-off and then gone back to not paying a dividend again. Would that have been...
I mean, it obviously is possible for them, and I think if they had a very strong reason, like, for example, they were going to make a big acquisition of a business which had made strategic sense, and they were going to use all the money for that, then yes, I think that's possible that they could have reduced the dividend down to a minimum level. I wouldn't have thought reducing it to zero would have been a very good idea, but certainly, compelling reasons, well put, to shareholders, which build a value, yes, I think people would accept that. But without that, then I think it would have been a bad idea.
Yes. And I agree with you, and I think communication in any situation like that is very, very important, so that the market knows exactly what is going on.
Yeah.
So on balance, we think that Microsoft did the right thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And they should continue it, unless they have a very compelling reason to shift away from it.
Okay. Thank you both very much.